What if I told you there are 13 powdered foods that could outlast every canned good in your pantry? Some with an unbelievable 30-year shelf life. These aren't high-tech survival rations or government secrets. They're the same everyday staples your grandparents quietly relied on, while we've been distracted by trendy freeze-dried meals. The truth? Certain powdered foods, when stored correctly, can last longer than most of us will live. And today, we're exposing all 13 of them. Number 7 will shock you. It's a common kitchen item most people toss without a second thought, yet it could outlast your mortgage. Stick around, because the final item is a game changer even seasoned preppers overlook. After a decade of testing long-term food storage, I've learned what works and what's a waste of money. These powders aren't just about survival, they're about control when the world runs out. Let's dive in. 1. The forgotten dust of survival. We live in a fragile bubble of convenience. We assume the grocery store lights will always hum, the refrigerated trucks will always arrive, and the shelves will always be full. But history, and the seniors who lived through its darker chapters, tells a different story. They knew that the veneer of civilization is thin, and when it cracks fast. While modern society obsesses over just-in-time delivery and perishable luxuries, the older generation quietly stockpiled the only thing that stands between a family and starvation when the systems fail: powdered foods. These aren't just baking ingredients, they are life insurance in a jar. When the grid goes down and the supply chains shatter, the fresh food in your refrigerator becomes a ticking time bomb of spoilage. Within days, it's useless. But tucked away in the dark corners of a wise prepper's pantry are white, yellow, and orange powders that look innocuous but hold the power to sustain life for decades. These are the foods that outlast wars, depressions, and catastrophic infrastructure failures. If you haven't secured these 4 critical items yet, you are gambling with your family's future on a system that is already showing cracks. 2. The white gold. Dehydrated dairy lifeblood. Most people look at powdered milk and see a sad, watery substitute for their morning cereal. They are dangerously mistaken. In a true survival scenario, this white powder is liquid gold. When the power grid fails and the dairy aisle is stripped bare by panic buyers within hours, and those relying on fresh milk will watch their nutrition source curdle and rot. The seniors who lived through the lean years understood that calcium and protein are non-negotiable for survival, especially for children and the elderly. Non-fat powdered milk isn't just a beverage. It is a concentrated survival ration that has been stripped of the moisture and fat that invite bacterial decay. When stored correctly in Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers, this substance enters a state of suspended animation, remaining viable for up to 30 years. Think about that time frame. That is 3 decades of security sitting silently on a shelf. It will outlast your car, your appliances, and perhaps even the current geopolitical order. But the real horror of a food crisis is the silent, creeping malnutrition that sets in when fresh supplies vanish. Rickets, osteoporosis, and general weakness are the ghosts of the past that return when dairy disappears. This powder is the barrier against those horrors. It revives instantly with water, providing the critical nutrients needed to keep bones strong and bodies functioning when medical help is non-existent. Beyond drinking, it becomes the backbone of emergency cooking, adding caloric density to soups, enabling the baking of bread when yeast is scarce, and turning simple grains into hearty meals. Ignoring this staple is not an oversight. It is a calculation that assumes you will never face a day when the trucks stop running. Seniors knew better. They knew that when the world goes dark, the person with the milk controls the health of their household. 3. The caloric shield, shelf-stable fat reserves. Fat is the enemy in modern diet culture. But in a survival situation, fat is the difference between waking up and fading away. The human body can only run on empty for so long before it begins to consume itself. This is why the older generation revered butter, not for its taste, but for its dense, life-sustaining energy. However, butter is notoriously fragile. It turns rancid quickly without refrigeration, becoming a toxic mess of spoiled fats. That is, unless you have the foresight to stockpile its dehydrated form, powdered butter. This is the secret weapon that most novice preppers completely overlook until it is too late. Powdered butter is real butter that has been processed to remove the moisture that harbors bacteria, leaving behind a shelf-stable concentrate that can last for 10 to 15 years. Imagine a winter blackout that stretches into weeks. Marana, the cold seeps into your bones, and your body burns through calories at an alarming rate just to stay warm. A bowl of plain rice or watery gruel won't cut it. You need dense, rich calories to keep your internal furnace burning. Powdered butter provides that critical fuel. It reconstitutes into a creamy spread that can make dry, stale survival crackers palatable, boosting morale when psychological stress is at its peak. But more importantly, it adds essential fatty acids to your diet that are nearly impossible to scavenge in an urban survival scenario. Without dietary fat, your body struggles to absorb vitamins, your skin cracks and bleeds, and your cognitive function declines. A fatal weakness when you need your wits to survive. Seniors didn't stock this for the flavor. Sure, they stocked it because they knew that starvation isn't just about an empty stomach. It's about the body shutting down from a lack of fuel. Having a can of powdered butter is like having a backup generator for your metabolism. It is a dense, compact source of energy that requires no electricity to maintain, waiting for the day when the lights go out and the hunger sets in. 4. The protein anchor. Desiccated ova. If you want to understand the fragility of our food system, look at the egg. It is a perfect source of protein, essential for muscle repair and immune function, yet it is incredibly vulnerable. A fresh egg is a ticking clock, fragile and quick to spoil. In a supply chain collapse, eggs will be among the first items to vanish, and raising chickens in a crisis requires resources and security you may not have. Yes, this is where powdered eggs become the ultimate survival essential, a fact that military strategists and hardcore survivalists have known for decades. Powdered eggs are not a chemical substitute. They are whole eggs that have been spray-dried and pasteurized, locking their nutritional profile in a time capsule. When sealed in a number 10 can or a heavy-duty bucket with oxygen absorbers, these eggs can last for 25 years or more. That is a quarter of a century of guaranteed protein. In a world where meat may become a dangerous luxury or a distant memory, having a stash of powdered eggs ensures you can still access high-quality protein without risking your life on a hunt or scavenging mission. The psychological impact of a hot meal cannot be overstated during a disaster. When the world outside is chaotic and dangerous, with the ability to whisk some powder with water and fry up a scrambled egg breakfast provides a critical anchor of normalcy. It prevents the despair that comes with eating cold, tasteless rations day after day. Furthermore, powdered eggs are the binding agent that makes cooking possible. Without eggs, you cannot make bread, pancakes, or batters, foods that are essential for stretching limited flour supplies. Seniors who lived through rationing understood that the egg was the key to unlocking the potential of other ingredients. By ignoring powdered eggs, you are limiting your survival menu to boiled grains and water. You are depriving your body of the building blocks it needs to repair injuries and fight off illness in a world without hospitals. It is a strategic error that could cost you your health when you need it most. 5. The morale booster, dehydrated gold dust. Survival is not just a physical battle, it is a mental war. History is littered with examples of groups that crumbled not because they lacked calories, but because they lost the will to endure. This is the dark reality of long-term crises. The monotony of survival food breaks the human spirit. Eating plain rice, beans, and flavorless mush for months on end destroys morale. This is why the wisest seniors stockpiled what seemed like a luxury but was actually a psychological necessity: powdered cheese. Do not mistake this for the neon orange dust found in cheap macaroni boxes. We are talking about high-quality, dehydrated cheese that retains its complex fats, proteins, and intense flavor profile for up to 20 years. In a bleak landscape where every meal is a struggle, the ability to add rich, a savory cheese flavor to a dish is a powerful weapon against despair. It transforms a bland bowl of wheat into a comforting meal that reminds your family of better times, keeping spirits high when hope is low. Nutritionally, powdered cheese is a powerhouse of calories and calcium. In a survival situation, you need every calorie you can get, and cheese powder provides a dense source of energy that takes up very little space. It requires no refrigeration, no special handling, and no cooking skills to use. You simply sprinkle it over whatever meager rations you have, and suddenly you have a meal that satisfies the deep primal craving for fat and salt. During the Great Depression and wartime rationing, flavor was a currency. Those who could make a meager meal taste good held power. Today we are spoiled by endless variety. But when the shelves are empty, that variety will vanish instantly. You will be left with whatever you stored. If you stored only the basics, you will survive, but you will suffer. If you stored powdered cheese, you have the ability to bring joy and comfort to your family in the darkest of times. It is a small investment now, but when the world is gray and cold, that jar of gold dust will be worth more than any currency. It is the taste of civilization preserved against the chaos. 6. The liquid resurrection, concentrated lifeblood. In the bone-chilling silence of a long-term grid-down scenario, the cold becomes a predator as dangerous as hunger. When the furnace dies and the insulation in your walls fails against a relentless winter, your body begins to burn calories at a terrifying rate just to keep your heart beating. This is where the novice prepper fails. They stock rice and beans, forgetting that eating cold, flavorless starch day after day breaks the human spirit long before the body starves. The seniors who weathered the Great Depression and wartime rationing knew that a hot, savory liquid could resurrect a freezing, despondent family. This is why they hoarded powdered soup and bouillon, not for the culinary experience, but for the visceral, life-saving warmth it provides when the world goes dark. Powdered soup and bouillon cubes are essentially concentrated survival injections. They are massive doses of sodium, a mineral demonized in times of plenty, but absolutely critical when you are sweating out electrolytes or fighting off shock. In a survival situation, low blood pressure and dehydration can kill you faster than starvation. A cup of hot broth acts as an immediate physiological stabilizer, expanding blood volume and warming the core from the inside out. But the horror of a food collapse isn't just physical, it is the psychological torture of monotony. Appetite fatigue is a real and deadly condition where the brain simply refuses to signal hunger for the same bland mush you've eaten for weeks. People in famine conditions have been known to waste away with food still on their plates because they could not stomach another bite of tasteless gruel. Bouillon is the cure for this despair. It is the alchemy that turns boiled weeds, scavenged roots, or plain hot water into something that registers as a meal. When sealed in mylar with oxygen absorbers, these powders can remain potent for 20 to 30 years. That is decades of flavor security. Imagine a scenario 10 years from now. The supply chains have shattered and fresh meat is a distant memory. You are surviving on meager rations. The ability to drop a cube of beef bouillon into a pot of water creates the illusion of a meat-rich stew, triggering the primal comfort of a hunt, even if no animal was involved. It tricks the brain into feeling satiated and cared for. This isn't just a pantry staple. It is a morale weapon against the creeping nihilism that sets in when society collapses. 7. The starch of last resort. Dehydrated spuds. There is a dangerous misconception among modern survivalists that they will simply grow their own food when the grocery stores close. They fantasize about harvest time, ignoring the brutal reality that crops fail, pests destroy gardens, and desperate neighbors steal what remains. Well, you cannot rely on a future harvest to feed you today. You need a guarantee. This is why the older generation quietly stacked boxes of instant potato flakes. To the uninitiated, they are a cheap side dish. To the survival expert, they are the ultimate gray man food source. Unassuming, lightweight, and packed with the dense carbohydrate energy required to fuel heavy labor in a post-industrial world. The true value of powdered potatoes lies in fuel poverty. In a blackout or fuel shortage, you cannot afford to waste precious propane or firewood boiling raw potatoes for 45 minutes. That energy usage is unsustainable. Instant potato flakes require nothing more than hot water to reconstitute. In minutes, you have a hot, calorie-dense mash that sits heavy in the stomach, providing a feeling of fullness that watery soups cannot achieve. This psychological sensation of a full belly is critical for sleep and mental stability. Furthermore, these flakes are the ultimate extender. When your meat supplies dwindle to mere scraps, or your vegetable garden produces a pitiful yield, you can thicken a watery stew with potato flakes to double the volume of the meal without diluting the calorie count. Stored properly in number 10 cans or airtight buckets, dehydrated potatoes have a shelf life of 25 years. They are a hedge against famine that sits patiently in the dark. But consider the alternative. If you are relying on raw potatoes, you have 6 months at best before they sprout eyes, soften, and rot into a toxic, inedible slush. Powdered potatoes do not rot. They do not sprout. They wait. When the snow locks you inside and the fresh food has long since turned to compost, this white powder will be the difference between a family that sleeps with full stomachs and one that lies awake listening to the growl of hunger. It is the humble, unglamorous fuel that keeps the human engine running when the machinery of civilization has ground to a halt. 8. The dark stimulant, bitter dust of morale. Survival is often painted as a landscape of guns and gear, but the reality is far quieter and more depressing. It is a world stripped of dopamine. The little chemical rewards we take for granted, coffee, sugar, treats, vanish instantly. In their place comes a crushing, gray void of anxiety and depression. When people lose hope, they make mistakes. They get careless with security, they neglect hygiene, and they give up. This is why powdered cocoa is not a luxury. It is a psychiatric necessity. Seniors didn't just keep it for grandchildren. They kept it because they knew that in the darkest times, a taste of something rich and familiar can tether a person to their sanity. Cocoa powder is a nutritional powerhouse disguised as a treat. It is chemically complex, containing theobromine and caffeine, stimulants that can provide a critical edge in alertness when you are exhausted and on watch duty. It is packed with magnesium, a mineral that naturally combats stress and anxiety, which will be at all-time highs when the grid fails. Unlike chocolate bars, which contain fats that go rancid within a year or two, pure defatted cocoa powder is incredibly stable. Kept dry and cool, it can last for over 2 decades. It is the trade item of the future. When paper money is worthless, hey, a few spoonfuls of cocoa could barter for antibiotics or ammunition. Picture the scene. The power has been out for weeks. The silence of the suburbs is deafening. Your family is huddled in a single room to conserve heat, staring at the walls, consumed by fear of the unknown. You boil water on a camping stove and mix in cocoa powder and a little sugar. The smell alone changes the atmosphere. For 10 minutes, the grim reality fades, replaced by a warm, sweet memory of the old world. That respite allows the mind to reset. It pulls people back from the brink of despair. To ignore cocoa is to ignore the mental toll of survival. You are stocking food for the body, but you must also stock fuel for the will to live. Without it, you are just a well-fed body waiting to give up. 9. The alchemy of desperation, preserved flavor. If you have never eaten the same meal for 30 days straight, you cannot understand the madness of palate fatigue. In a true collapse, your diet will likely consist of rice, beans, or wheat, day after day, month after month. It is a beige, flavorless existence. After a few weeks, the smell of plain rice becomes nauseating. This is where the stockpile of the novice prepper becomes a prison. They have the calories, but they cannot force themselves to eat them. The 55-plus generation, many of whom remembered the creative scarcity of lean times, knew that spices were the difference between feed and food. They hoarded garlic powder, cayenne, onion powder, and curry, not just for taste, but for survival alchemy. Spices and seasonings are the camouflage for desperation. In a long-term emergency, you may be forced to eat things you would currently consider garbage. Forage dandelions, trapping game that has a gamey or unpleasant taste, or eating older dry goods that have developed a stale cardboard flavor. You cannot eat these things plain without gagging. Heavy seasoning masks the taste of staleness. It hides the bitterness of wild greens. It makes the unacceptable acceptable. A heavy dose of chili powder or garlic salt can shock the taste buds into accepting a meal that would otherwise be rejected. This ensures you consume the calories you need to avoid starvation, even when the food source is less than ideal. Beyond flavor, spices are the medicine cabinet of the kitchen. When pharmacies are looted and closed, your spice rack becomes your apothecary. Garlic powder retains antimicrobial properties. When cayenne pepper boosts circulation and can stop bleeding in minor cuts. Ginger powder settles the nausea that comes from bad water or anxiety. Turmeric is a potent anti-inflammatory for the aches and pains of survival labor. These powders, when vacuum sealed or kept in glass jars, can retain their potency for 15 to 20 years. They take up mere inches of shelf space, but offer miles of psychological and physical relief. To overlook them is to condemn your family to a nutritional prison of bland misery. When the world ends, flavor will be the first ghost to haunt you, unless you have the foresight to jar it up and keep it safe. 10. The wake-up call, instant mental fortitude. When the world plunges into darkness, the most dangerous enemy is not the looter outside your door. It is the fog of exhaustion inside your mind. Sleep deprivation, on a constant stress, and the sheer physical labor of survival will grind you down until you make a fatal mistake. Forgetting to secure a lock, misjudging a threat, or succumbing to despair are the real killers in a collapse. This is why the older generations, who understood the grind of hard times, never underestimated the strategic value of instant coffee. It is not a luxury, it is a weapon. It is the chemical edge that keeps your mind sharp when your body is screaming for surrender. While others descend into a zombie-like stupor of fatigue, you will be alert, focused, and ready. Freeze-dried instant coffee is a miracle of preservation. When sealed away from moisture and light, it can remain potent for 30 years or more. That is 3 decades of guaranteed mental clarity waiting on your shelf. Imagine it is week 2 of a nationwide blackout. You are taking turns on watch duty, sleeping in 2-hour shifts. The cold has seeped into your bones, and your thoughts are slow and muddled. This is the moment you are most vulnerable, but you have a jar of this brown gold. You heat water over a twig stove, and the aroma alone acts as a psychological anchor to the old world. The first sip is a jolt to the system. The caffeine floods your brain, sharpening your senses and pushing back the crushing weight of exhaustion. This ritual is more than a habit. It is a critical operational procedure for maintaining a defensive posture. In a world without alarms or schedules, coffee becomes the signal to your body and mind that it is time to perform. It is the difference between a vigilant survivor and a sleepwalking victim. 11. The sweet deception, the currency of morale. When the bleak landscape of a post-collapse world, where every day is a struggle against hunger and fear, the human spirit will begin to crack. The monotony of survival rations, flavorless, utilitarian, and grim, will chip away at your will to live. This is a truth that those who have never faced true hardship fail to comprehend. The body may have calories, but the soul will starve. This is why powdered sugar and other dry sweeteners are not frivolous additions to a pantry. They are essential psychological tools. Sugar in its purest powdered form is practically immortal. It does not support bacterial growth and, when kept dry, will outlast you. Its value in a crisis cannot be overstated. It is a concentrated burst of energy, a mood-altering substance, and a powerful preservative. When your only food sources are bland grains and fibrous roots, a spoonful of sugar can make the inedible palatable. It can turn a bowl of watery oatmeal from a chore into a comfort, reminding your brain of a time before the struggle. This is not just about taste. It is about preventing the dangerous appetite fatigue that can lead to self-imposed starvation. But the true power of sugar lies in its ability to manufacture morale. A simple hot drink sweetened with sugar can calm a crying child or give a moment of nostalgic peace to a terrified adult. In a world stripped of all comforts, these small moments of sweetness become anchors of sanity. Furthermore, sugar is a bartering item of immense value. When the paper money in your wallet is just tinder, a bag of sugar can trade for medicine, ammunition, or critical intelligence. It is a universal currency understood by all. Seniors who remembered rationing knew that sweetness was a form of wealth, a way to bring a flash of light into the darkest of times. To neglect storing it is to assume your mental fortitude is unbreakable. It is not. 12. The foundation of strength. Concentrated protein. Isolate. When the systems that feed us crumble, the illusion of easy protein will vanish. The meat in the grocery store will rot in days. Hunting will be a dangerous, high-risk gamble in depleted territories. In this new reality, physical strength will be paramount. You will be chopping wood, hauling water, and defending your home. This constant physical exertion will tear down your muscle tissue. Without an adequate protein source to rebuild it, your body will begin to cannibalize itself. You will grow weaker each day until you can no longer perform the basic tasks of survival. This slow, wasting decay is one of the most terrifying aspects of a long-term crisis. This is why protein powder, whether whey, soy, or pea isolate, is one of the most critical survival assets you can possess. It is not for bodybuilders, it is for bodies that refuse to break. Modern protein powders are a technological marvel of nutrient density. Stripped of moisture and fat, these isolates can remain stable and nutritionally complete for 10 to 25 years when properly sealed. A single scoop provides the protein equivalent of several eggs or a piece of chicken, with zero cooking, fuel, or prep time required. Think of the implications. In a situation where you are injured, ill, or simply too exhausted to prepare a meal, a protein shake can be the difference between recovery and a downward spiral. It is instant, life-sustaining nutrition that your body can absorb with minimal digestive effort. It is the perfect food for a bug-out bag, where every ounce of weight matters. A small container holds dozens of meals that can keep you moving when others are forced to stop. When your community is rationing food, adding a scoop of protein powder to a thin soup or a small portion of grains amplifies its nutritional impact, preventing the muscle wasting and immune system collapse that accompanies protein deficiency. Seniors stockpiled protein-rich foods because they knew that a strong body was the first line of defense against chaos. Protein powder is the modern evolution of that wisdom, a compact, efficient, and long-lasting guarantee that your body will have the fuel it needs to endure. 13. The cream of the crop, full-fat dairy lifeline. There is a fatal flaw in the pantry of most modern preppers. They prioritize non-fat options, conditioned by a world of dietary excess. They stock non-fat powdered milk, believing it to be the sensible choice. They are dangerously wrong. In a survival scenario, fat is not the enemy. It is life. Calories are energy, and fat is the most calorie-dense nutrient available. Dry whole milk powder, containing all the natural milk fats, is a forgotten powerhouse of survival nutrition. While its shelf life is slightly less than its non-fat counterpart, modern packaging with oxygen absorbers allows it to last for an astonishing 20 to 25 years. It is a complete food, providing not only calcium and protein, but also the critical fats necessary for brain function, vitamin absorption, and sustained energy. The psychological impact of fat is something that cannot be replicated. A drink made with non-fat powder is a thin, watery ghost of milk. A drink made with whole milk powder is creamy, rich, and satisfying. It coats the stomach and provides a feeling of satiety that signals to a panicked brain that it is safe and nourished. This is especially critical for children, whose growing bodies and brains have a desperate need for dietary fats. A diet of lean starches and proteins will leave them weak and perpetually hungry. Whole milk powder can be reconstituted into a nourishing drink, used to make creamy soups, added to bread for a softer texture, or mixed into hot cereals to create a calorie-dense and comforting meal. It is a versatile ingredient that elevates every other food in your storage. During the lean years of the mid-20th century, households that had access to whole milk, fresh or powdered, were demonstrably healthier. They had a source of complete nutrition that others lacked. To choose non-fat powder over whole milk powder is to willingly discard a massive caloric and psychological advantage for no logical reason in a survival context. It is a choice born of peacetime thinking, a mistake you cannot afford to make when preparing for hard times. 14. The ultimate failsafe, total nutrition powder. We have reached the apex of powdered food preparedness. This final item is the ultimate failsafe, the last line of defense when all other systems have failed. It is the modern embodiment of the all-in-one survival ration, meal replacement powders. Do not confuse these with simple protein shakes. A true survival-grade meal replacement is a scientifically formulated blend of proteins, complex carbohydrates, healthy fats, and a full spectrum of essential vitamins and minerals. It is a complete, balanced meal in powdered form. Its strategic importance is absolute. With a shelf life of up to 30 years, it represents a 3-decade guarantee of total nutrition that requires nothing but water. Imagine a scenario where your home is compromised. You are forced to evacuate with only what you can carry. There is no time to cook, no safe place to build a fire, or perhaps a severe illness sweeps through your group, leaving everyone too weak to perform even basic tasks. In these moments of extreme crisis, the ability to create a nutritionally perfect meal in 30 seconds is not a convenience. It is a miracle. It bypasses the need for fuel, cooking utensils, and time. It ensures that even in the most dire circumstances, your body receives the macros and micronutrients it needs to fight off infection, repair tissue, and maintain cognitive function. The psychological relief of knowing you have this failsafe is immense. It is the ace up your sleeve. While others are bartering for scraps or foraging for weeds of questionable nutritional value, you possess a compact source of perfect food. This is the food that keeps first responders and special forces operating at peak performance in the most hostile environments on Earth. By storing it, you are giving yourself and your family that same strategic advantage. It is the ultimate expression of preparedness, an admission that the worst-case scenario is possible and a decisive action to ensure you will survive it.